Over the last month or so, I've done a number of videos on the year of 2011 in wrestling and why it is my favorite year, or was my favorite year, to be a fan since I started watching in 2008. From looking back at CM Punk's pipe bomb promo from June 27, 2011, and its impact 3 years later, to why July 17th is my favorite day of the year, and the significance of the 2011 Money in the Bank pay-per-view. Here today, I thought I'd give my thoughts on one of my favorite episodes of Raw ever, and before I start, I'll just say that I promise, this will be the last time, for the next few months at least, that I mention the year of 2011 in wrestling. There was just so much going on that summer that it's hard to ignore it, but with today, July 25th, marking the 3-year anniversary of one of my favorite episodes of Raw ever, and by far easily my favorite episode of Raw that year, I thought I'd give my full review of the show right here in this video, in video form. My written form of my written review in written form, I guess, is up on my website, nextwrestling.weebly.com. If you type in July 25th in the search bar at the top of the site, it will come up in the search results. So make sure to check out the written review of that show, July 25th, 2011, on my website. But nevertheless, 3 years later, I thought I'd give my in-depth analysis of the entire show and every single aspect of it in its awesomeness, and exactly explain to you why it was one of my favorite episodes of Raw ever, and its significance 3 years later. So with that being said, kicking off the show, we had The Miz versus Rey Mysterio in the finals of the WWE Championship Tournament. Now, 1 week prior, and this is coming off the very hot Money in the Bank pay-per-view, and you can get my full thoughts on that in my video blog from last week, from July 17th, and why it is my favorite day of the year. But the next day on Raw, July 18th, we had a tournament to crown a new WWE Champion. It came down to The Miz and Rey Mysterio, but before the finals could be held that night, Triple H came out, as did Vince McMahon, and, doing that whole segment saying that Triple H was the new COO of the WWE. So the tournament finals were held off until the following week. So kicking off the show, we had that matchup, and The Miz and Rey Mysterio, up to this point, had not had many matches against each other in singles competition. This was maybe the second or third time they had ever clashed in singles competition. So the match felt fresh, and considering everyone that was in the tournament, it wasn't the freshest match that they could have done. Rey Mysterio, already a 2-time world champion. The Miz had already let go of the WWE title only a few months prior, so it wasn't the freshest faces in the freshest faces, and that's kind of a tongue twister, in the matchup. But it was a fresh matchup when you look at the people involved and how many matches they had against each other. So that being said, Mysterio and Miz had a very good contest. Mysterio emerged victorious to become the new WWE Champion, and the first and only victory of the WWE title he would hold in his career. But nevertheless, a great moment. He would celebrate backstage a little bit afterwards with a number of talents, and having the drinks poured all around him before it was announced by Triple H that he would have to defend that championship later on in the night against the former champion who still had his championship rematch clause in his contract, John Cena. Now, a lot of people expected that matchup to be held until SummerSlam, but we would find out why that wasn't to be later on in the night. But that would have been a great SummerSlam matchup. I mean, you talk about Miz and Mysterio not having many matches together. Mysterio and John Cena, before this matchup, and I'll get to their matchup a little later on in this review, had not had many matches against each other. When you go back to, I think the last matchup before this one in 2011 was, I think, maybe in 03 or 04. I think it marked the official face turn of John Cena, but the last time these two had a matchup was many years prior, so that was a very fresh matchup. But before I even get to that, and even after Mysterio won the championship, out comes Alberto Del Rio, attempting to cash in his Money in the Bank briefcase, and his plan is thwarted by one Rey Mysterio. So a very good way to kick off the show, very hot moment. I mean, it was pretty obvious we would be crowning a new champion because it was for the vacant title, but still a great moment. Congrats to Mysterio for winning the WWE title at that moment. Up next, we had Dolph Ziggler versus Evan Bourne. Dolph Ziggler came out to a new remixed version of I Am Perfection by Downstate. Enjoyed the previous version. He had that for about 2 years before switching over to the Downstate version on this show. Great theme song. He would only hold it for another, I think, 4 months before switching to Here to Show the World, which is also kind of a remix of I Am Perfection. And it was at that point that he dropped the whole Perfection gimmick and started becoming the show off. But I thought that was a great theme song for as long as he held it, for as long as he had it, for about 4 months. But yeah, great theme song, and his match with Evan Bourne was very well done. I thought that was a nice matchup. The finish was awesome. I think Evan Bourne, if I remember correctly, was going for the Shooting Star Press, and they had 2 matches that ended like this, so I don't know if it was one or the other. It was either the match the finish of this match saw Evan Bourne do the shooting star press and then land on his feet, and Ziggler hit the zigzag from behind. I think that might have been their first matchup on this show. It might have been he went for the shooting star press. Ziggler put up the knees, blocked it, then hit the zigzag. So a very nice finish of the contest, a nice win for the nice non-title victory for the United States champion at the time, Dolph Ziggler. Because at this time, Dolph Ziggler, I mean, he had just won the U.S. Championship about a month prior. He really wasn't doing anything with the championship. So for him to get a nice non-title victory, albeit over Evan Bourne, it was a good win, a good matchup. Definitely suggest going out of your way to check out the finish of the matchup because I thought it was very well done. But the most significant part about this contest was the fact that Ziggler got a new theme song, which I thought was awesome, and added an extra edge to his stale character at the time. So up next, we had a Divas Tag Team matchup pitting Kelly and Eve against the Bella Twins. Kind of a pointless matchup and really the only blemish on this otherwise perfect show. Kelly wasn't feuding with the Bella Twins at this point anymore. She was going on to find her new challenger for the Divas Championship at SummerSlam. The following week would hold that Battle Royal to crown a new number one contender to the title, which would be won by Beth Phoenix, who would go on to turn heel afterwards. So this matchup was really inconsequential in the long scheme of things. It was what it was. It wasn't terrible, but given who it involved, Eve, Kelly, and the Bella Twins especially, was not the best matchup, but for what it was fine. So, like I said, it wasn't too atrocious to the point where it was inexcusable. So that was, like I said before, a small blemish on what was an otherwise amazing show. So up next, we had one of the best segments of the night, in my opinion. We get to the point where Triple H has the State of the WWE address. So he comes out 1 week after, 1 week removed from being named the new WWE COO by Vince McMahon and the board of directors. He comes out before he can announce the blockbuster return to WWE. And at this point, everyone's thinking it's CM Punk, who had, who they weren't mentioning on TV at this point. They said that he was the one who shall not be named, like Voldemort in Harry Potter or something like that. But, Triple H comes out, but before he can announce the blockbuster re-signing, out comes R-Truth. Now, R-Truth at the time, as you probably know, was doing the best work of his career as a heel in 2011. And this was a great segment, one of the best segments that R-Truth was involved in that year as a heel. When he comes out, the little Jimmies, two of them, not just one this time, two, one by each side, and Triple H was kind of playing mind games with them, saying that he had his own little Jimmies, had his own imaginary friends of his own. This one was looking at that one, then he called that one fat, and stuff like that. I thought it was hilarious and absolutely hysterical segment involving R-Truth and Triple H. So definitely go out of your way to check out this segment because I still laugh looking back on it to this day because I thought it was a great segment involving R-Truth and Triple H. And like I said before, it's just sad to look back on it. I mean, it's funny to look back on it because R-Truth was such a comical yet great heel. But at the same time, I mean, you look back, you fast forward 3 years later to what he is now, it's just depressing. But that being said, though, a great segment. And before R-Truth can storm off, he said, I know how to play the game, or I ain't playing, or something like that. Something along those lines to that extent. He walks off, but before he can, and even before that, actually, Triple H brought back Jim Ross to commentary, who had not been seen in a regular role on WWE TV since WrestleMania season when he was brought back for the Michael Cole and Jerry Lawler feud, and he was kind of taken off TV for a while after that. And by this point, he was not a regular announcer on WWE TV. He hadn't been since, I think, late 2009. But he was brought back to become a full-time announcer for the WWE announce team on this show, which I thought was a great addition. Big Jim Ross fan. I mean, I don't know who isn't. But he would stay on the Raw announce team for the next 3 months before being taken off by the new, at the time, Raw general manager John Laurinaitis, in that whole atrocity of a show. And that's funny because the night that he was appointed the new Raw commentator, it was one of the best shows ever of 2011, one of my favorite shows to this day. And then you fast forward 3 months later to when he was fired off commentary. It was one of the worst shows of 2011. And it's just funny to think about that. But so Jim Ross is back. R-Truth walks off. But before R-Truth can walk off, Triple H announces the blockbuster re-signing of one John Morrison, who had received a promo the week prior that he was coming back. It was expected that he would be back in time for SummerSlam. We knew he was coming back. It's not in this fashion. I mean, like I said, they aired a video package for the guy 1 week earlier, and it wasn't like he was fired in storyline. I mean, when he left, I think the day after Extreme Rules a few months prior, he was injured. He was out with a neck injury. So it wasn't like he was fired. So for Triple H to say that he was re-signed was a little bit weird. It was a little bit, didn't make sense from a storyline standpoint, but it was an awesome brawl. R-Truth and John Morrison, a lot of history between those two. Former tag team partners and best friends turned enemies after R-Truth turned heel on John Morrison in April of 2011, only 3 months prior to this segment. So a very fun brawl between these two. I thought it would be leading to a matchup between the two at SummerSlam, given the fact, given all this history that they had together. John Morrison got a big pop when he came out. A lot of people thought that he would be given the blockbuster push finally when he came back to feud with R-Truth. But the feud really went nowhere. I mean, they feuded on WWE TV for a few weeks, and they ended up facing off on the Raw before SummerSlam, and R-Truth won clean. I mean, they faced off at SummerSlam in a six-man tag team matchup, six-man tag team action, but never one-on-one. So I thought that was a missed opportunity and very odd and mind-boggling to me personally. But that being said, though, that was an awesome segment that marked the returns of John Morrison, as well as Jim Ross's commentary. So two blockbuster returns in one. And then up next, we had Zack Ryder taking on Michael Cole, because Michael Cole was complaining that due to the return of Jim Ross, that he would have nothing left to prove on commentary. He was whining because he was a heel at the time, and he didn't want Jim Ross on commentary with him. So Triple H said, you can either leave now and quit the WWE, and we'll put your resume, we'll put your position on Raw under consideration until Friday's SmackDown. If you don't show up to SmackDown, then we'll find a replacement for you, we'll fire you, unless you compete in the following matchup. So Michael Cole, he comes out a little later on, dressed in Triple H's ring gear, coming out to King of Kings, which is comical thinking back on now, seeing that that is currently Triple H's theme song. He's used it many times in the past, I understand that, but Triple H now uses it as his regular theme song, as a heel, as a part of the Authority. But that being said, though, so Michael Cole comes out for his matchup, just hilariously dressed in Triple H's ring gear before his opponent is announced to be Zack Ryder. Because at this time, Zack Ryder was doing the whole Ryder Revolution thing, as you can clearly recall, after doing the Z True Long Island Ice True Stuff, what the fuck, whatever it's called. I always have a tough time pronouncing it. Let's see, Z True Long Island Story. There we go. I'm sorry, completely botched that. But yeah, he was doing that show at the time. He was trying to garner a head of steam on Monday Night Raw, trying to get on the show. He wasn't even on the show at this point. And this really marked the first time that Zack Ryder would be pushed on WWE TV. I mean, he got a 30-second win over Michael Cole, hit the Rough Rider, it was over with. Wasn't massively over or anything like that, but people have been petitioning for weeks online at Raw. People have been chanting for him to get Ryder on Raw. They finally got their wish on this show. Got his first singles victory, I think, to date. I think his first ever singles victory on Raw and on this show albeit against Michael Cole, but it was a win nevertheless. And like I said before, it really marked the first of many showings for Zack Ryder on Raw. I mean, a week later, he'd be jobbing to McGillicuddy, David Otunga in tag team action when he teamed with Santino or whatever it was. But, I mean, in retrospect, it really did mark the rise of Zack Ryder on Raw, going on to garner a lot of television time on both Raw and SmackDown. I mean, the next night of the SmackDown tapings, he was announced to be the assistant to SmackDown general manager Teddy Long, so that got him airtime over there. And then, so it would be another 2 months later until he would start his feud with Dolph Ziggler over the United States Championship when he beat him on Raw with Hugh Jackman on his corner. But that's another story for another day. But nice segment there. I marked the hell out when I heard Zack Ryder's music hit. Hearing him on Raw. I mean, that was the first time I think he got an entrance on Raw ever. So that was awesome. But, up next we had another matchup between Kofi Kingston and Alberto Del Rio. We've had so many matches between these two in the past, but they've always had good contests against each other, and this was no exception. Good matchup. Really didn't mean anything aside from the fact that it gave Del Rio a clean victory. I mean, at the time, he was one of the true heels that could win a match without cheating. So that was one of the things I loved about Del Rio at the time. Not the case anymore, but that was kind of the case with Del Rio when they first started pushing him. So I really love that aspect of it. Aside from that, really didn't mean much in the long scheme of things, but otherwise a very good contest from Kingston and Del Rio. And then we get to the main event. For the WWE Championship, John Cena versus Rey Mysterio. For the WWE title, John Cena cashing in his rematch clause. Like I said before, for the first time since 2003, in almost 8 years, these guys were going at it on Raw over the WWE Championship, nevertheless. So with that being said, a great matchup. I think WWE put it on their list of best matches of Raw, maybe of 2011 as well. But I don't know. I don't know if they did one of those lists that year. But if you go back, they did a recent list of the best matches in Raw history, and this match is on there. And it's not really hard to see why. It's a great matchup. Mysterio and Cena have such great chemistry together that it's kind of mind-boggling to think that they haven't had more matches against each other. I mean, considering they're both faces, maybe that kind of throws that kind of prevents them from having more matches or feuds with each other. But to this day, I can't remember a real true feud between Rey Mysterio and John Cena, even before their ascension to the main event scene in 05, 06. But even before that, I can't remember them having really a true feud against each other. But on this show, they really showed that they had such great chemistry together in the ring that I'm surprised they never really followed it up with a proper rematch. But like I said before, earlier on in the video, this was a matchup of SummerSlam caliber, of SummerSlam main event worthiness. This is a match you could see, I could easily have seen as the main event for SummerSlam 2011 for the WWE title. It was that good. It was a great matchup. They could have a storyline of respect between the two. They didn't have to turn either of them heel. It didn't matter. The matchup was so good. I really, really enjoyed it. And seeing Cena win back the championship only 8 days after losing it, I mean, it got out a massive groan out of me. I mean, I'm not the biggest Rey Mysterio fan, but it was cool to see him get his moment. And even he has admitted in interviews in the past. I mean, yes, his WWE title victory, lasted all of a few hours, but he can always say that he won the WWE title. He had his moment. I mean, same with Christian. He won and lost the World Heavyweight Championship within a matter of days. But he, too, has said in interviews that he had his moment, and nobody can ever take that away from him. So that's great. But that being said, though, Cena winning back the championship, I was like, oh, shit, why this again? Why this again? Why John Cena, only after 8 days of one of the hottest angles in recent WWE history, does he have to win back the championship for, I don't know, the 8th, 9th, 10th time, whatever it was, maybe a 10-time world champion by this point. But that being said, though, so after the matchup, John Cena picks up Rey Mysterio, and Rey Mysterio was going for the 619. John Cena props him up for the AA, gets the win. After the matchup, celebrates with the title, goes to give Rey Mysterio a hug. I think the music got cut off by that point. I'm thinking, please turn heel, please turn heel, please turn heel. Didn't happen, of course, and it's kind of funny thinking back on that because neither of these guys would have ever turned heel, especially at this point in time. But it is funny to look back on thinking that I actually thought that would happen. But when he didn't turn heel, I'm thinking, okay, here we go. What's next for SummerSlam? It's all over. We're done. John Cena, once again, the WWE Champion, back to the same old stagnant status quo. So, but before the show can go off the air, you hear, or, I'm sorry, whatever comes across clear, I can't really tell. But anyway, you hear the static go off, and you hear a strange theme song. And I think it's the only day, I've said this a number of times, the only time to my memory that Cult of Personality never got a reaction. It just quiet, this pure silence came over the arena in the 2 seconds that this happened. It was great. So the arena goes silent, and John Cena, celebrating with the title, looks towards the stage, and I will never forget these words. He looks towards the stage, and he looks over towards ringside, too, towards the ring announcer. He says it twice. He goes, "That's not Alberto. That's not Alberto." Because Alberto Del Rio, like I said before, was the current Money in the Bank winner. A lot of people expected for Cena to win the title or for Del Rio to cash in, start that feud going into SummerSlam. And when that didn't happen, you hear Cult of Personality go off. And I mean, I'm not one of those people that will claim to say that I followed CM Punk from his indie days. I followed him from the day that he was born. No, I followed him from his WWE career. I didn't even start becoming a fan of CM Punk until like 2010, before the Pipe Bomb promo. But not even when he first started was he one of my favorite guys. So I'm not going to lie to you and say that I've been following him since his ROH days when he first used that theme song. So maybe like all of 5 or 10 people in the arena that night actually knew what was going on when they heard that theme song and heard the significance of it and that he used it back in ROH. But I'll just never forget when Cena said, "That's not Alberto. That's not Alberto." So that was a great line. But Cult of Personality goes off. Commentary team goes silent. While the theme is still going on, Jim Ross is still talking. I don't even know if he realized or if they told him to shut up, but he stops mid-sentence after the theme goes off. like I said before, the only time in WWE history to my memory that the theme never got a reaction. And it's funny because this marked the official return of CM Punk, okay? So the return of CM Punk, initially, when they hear the music, the first time we ever heard the theme song on WWE TV, after he used This Fire Burns for the very last time at the 2011 Money in the Bank pay-per-view, you fast forward 8 days later, he debuts with a new theme song, new look, new Titantron, new everything, new stage set, everything. So the initial reaction when the theme hit gets no reaction. But you fast forward 2 years later when he returned at Payback in Chicago, or even when he eventually does return to the WWE. When it will be, I have no idea. I just say that he will be back at some point. They always come back. CM Punk is no exception, whether it be next month, next year, in the next 5 years, next 10 years, next decade, whatever. CM Punk will be back, but it's funny because when he does come back, the pop that he will receive when Cult of Personality goes off will be off the charts amazing. It will be thunderous in whatever arena. I am envious for whoever will be in the arena when CM Punk comes back, whenever that will be. I'm just 100%, almost 99% confident that CM Punk will be back at some point. But like I said, it's kind of ironic because when he returned on this show and you heard that music, no reaction. When he eventually does return, years down the line or whenever it will be, the reaction when that music hits, when you hear that, it will be off the charts. But that being said, about maybe 15 seconds go by, Cena's still looking towards the stage saying that's not Alberto. CM Punk comes out with the new Titantron, the new stage set. It says best in the world on it. He's wearing the shirt that he wore at Money in the Bank, sans the 7/17/11 date that was at the bottom of it, the commemorative t-shirt from that event. It doesn't say the date on it, but it is his new, best in the world t-shirt that he wore at the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. Almost identical to the one that he wore at that show. But he comes out, he's doing the arm, has his arms spread and everything like that, looking towards the crowd, going both sides of the stage. Commentary is silent through all of this. Unlike when Brock Lesnar returned, they were talking like, oh, look who's back, their shitty commentary. At least the commentary team was silent throughout all of this, just letting it soak in. I just remember being so excited to see CM Punk back. As remember at this time, even before the Money in the Bank pay-per-view, it had been reported, not only was this going on TV, like on WWE TV, but in terms of backstage rumors and stuff, no one figured that Punk would have re-signed to a new deal. We all thought that it would be, we all knew that he'd be back at some point, but no one knew for sure whether he had signed a new deal or not. And it was later revealed to be that CM Punk signed the new deal that night at Money in the Bank, just maybe an hour or two before he came out for his matchup against John Cena on that show. So at this point in time, when he didn't appear the next night on Raw, and they didn't even mention him by name, and he didn't return earlier on in the night when Triple H announced the Blockbuster re-signing, and it ended up being Jim Ross, which I was excited for, but it wasn't CM Punk. And everyone thought that would be CM Punk, and just no one knew for sure that he would be back. So for him to come out, I was marking out like crazy. He comes out, confronts John Cena in the ring. While the theme is still going off, Cult of Personality is still going off around the arena. John Cena holds up his fake WWE title because CM Punk had still had his WWE Championship that he won from Money in the Bank. The one that Cena it was one of those toy belts, one of those replica titles, but not exactly the same. He holds up that championship, and then CM Punk, in a great visual, holds up his title that much higher, just right above his, and made for a great visual. CM Punk says something. The real champ is here, or something along those lines. My friend John, at Heel by Design on Twitter, knows the real story because he recorded that episode of Raw, and we've watched it back so many times because it was a great moment. And he knows exactly what was said between Punk and Cena on that show, and the verbiage between the two, because you can't hear it, you can only see their lips moving, and he read their lips and figured out what they were saying. I can't remember what it was exactly, but all I remember was that CM Punk closed out with, "The real champ is here," or something like that. He holds up the title that much higher to go off the show with that visual. And I think they also went on the turnbuckles, or maybe and held up the titles at the same time. Or I think that was the following week, never mind. So they went off the show with that. As Cena leaves the ring, CM Punk just standing there with his own championship belt. So in a great moment, the crowd's going crazy. Like I said before, I was going crazy because I didn't know CM Punk would be back. And later on in the show, later on in the night, after all that happens, it was a WWE.com exclusive. Still one of my favorite videos and one of my favorite moments, even though it didn't even air on TV. CM Punk gets a microphone technically his first promo back. He gets a microphone, says, "I'm back," and drops the microphone in pipe bomb fashion. Great stuff. Like I said, WWE.com exclusive. You can find it on YouTube if you type in CM Punk, "I'm back." Great moments as well. But that closed out what was, like I said before, one of my favorite episodes of Raw ever. I mean, you look what was on this show. Zack Ryder getting his first singles win ever, and kind of kicking off the Ryder Revolution officially. CM Punk coming back. Two very good, two awesome WWE Championship matches that you won't find anywhere else. Dolph Ziggler getting a new theme song. Jim Ross coming back. John Morrison coming back. An absolutely stacked show. A complete opposite, a complete 180 from the episode of Raw from 1 week prior. The night after Money in the Bank, I thought that was a very disappointing and boring show. You fast forward 1 week later, we get one of the best shows in recent memory. By far the best episode of 2011. That goes without saying. But still, to this day, like I said before, one of my favorite episodes of Raw ever. You look what was on the show, it's really not hard to see why it's one of my favorites. But I remember just right after the show, I called up my friend John, texting him saying, "Did you see that show? Did you see that show? So epic, so absolutely amazing." And he was just as excited as I was to see CM Punk back and everything that happened on that show. I remember calling him up, like I did after the Pipe Bomb promo. And then just for the rest of the night, I remember trying to figure out what the theme was that CM Punk used when he came out. When he came out, I mean, I didn't recognize that. I didn't know what Cult of Personality was at the time. I didn't play Grand Theft Auto or San Andreas or whatever game it was in, because I remember looking up this song on YouTube, Cult of Personality by Living Color. And all the comments were all CM Punk, of course, but a lot of them said that, I started listening to this from Grand Theft Auto and whatever else. But that video got monster hits that night for people looking up Cult of Personality on YouTube. I remember it got a big spike on iTunes for sales and stuff like that. I listened to it like 10 times over for the rest of that night. Downloaded it immediately. Still to this day, one of my favorite songs ever, if not my favorite song ever. One of the best theme songs in wrestling history. It's so fitting and so perfect for CM Punk, and I was so glad that they ended up letting him use that. Letting him use, the theme song that he used during the summer of Punk and ROH. And for them to buy out the rights to the song for him to use it while he was in WWE, it was perfect. And like I said before, when that theme eventually does hit once again, it's going to be the pipe will be off the charts. But even still, I just remember being so excited for days on end. And I mean, the best wrestling shows, the best moments that will keep that smile on your face for days on end, and the best moments that will keep you in a good mood forever. And that was one of these shows. This was one of those shows with the return of CM Punk and everything else that happened on the show. And the summer of Punk, a lot of people like to think, ended with the 2011 Money in the Bank pay-per-view. But I think this show is greatly overlooked in the long scheme of things and everything else that happened. The contract signings between John Cena and CM Punk before SummerSlam, I thought that was tremendous. Still one of my favorite segments in WWE or Raw history. And even after that, I mean, the return of Kevin Nash, Del Rio cashing in, Triple H's feud to CM Punk. The summer of Punk really died at Night of Champions when he lost to Triple H in that overbooked shit fest. But aside from that, though, this was still a great time to be a wrestling fan. So go back and watch the show in its entirety. You can find it on YouTube. I did write an article on it for Bleacher Report 1 year later on July 25th, 2012. You can find that. Just type it in Google or something. I'll probably tweet out the link or something today. But like I said before, if you want my full written review of the show, it's up on my website, nextwrestling.weebly.com. In the search bar, type in July 25th. You will find it in the search results for Monday Night Raw review for July 25th, 2011. And it's quite a shame that WWE, I mean, they have all their episodes of Raw. They upload episodes of Raw 30 days after they air on TV. So all the episodes, for the most part, from 2014 are up there. And then all the episodes of SmackDown, same thing. But they also have every episode of Raw from 2013 up there, which was a good year, a great year in wrestling, might I add. So it's great to go back and watch those Raws. And same thing with 2012, but it's a shame that they don't have, I don't think at all, any full-length episodes of Raw from 2011. I mean, there was a lot of shit during that year that was not good, but like I've said time and time again, no matter how bad that year was in wrestling, I mean, that year's WrestleMania was atrocious, but still to this day is my favorite, most memorable year to be a wrestling fan for me personally. And that's why I'm personally pissed they don't have any episodes of Raw from that year. And maybe they will edit at some point, and hopefully this episode too, because it's great to go back and watch it. Great show, a lot of great moments, so memorable in the long scheme of things, and a lot of stuff that still lives on to this day. From the return of CM Punk to the debut of Cult of Personality to Rey Mysterio getting his first and only WWE title, to Zack Ryder's rise to prominence for at least 6 months or so, Ziggler getting a new theme song, our True segment, the return of Jim Ross, the return of John Morrison. Like I said before, so much stuff going on in the show, making it one of the most notable episodes of Raw that year and of all time, or at least in recent memory. So that's what makes it my favorite episode of Raw of 2011 and of all time. Like I said before, you can go back and check it out for yourself on YouTube and whatever else. Hopefully the WWE Network uploads it soon so I can watch in HD quality. With all that being said, make sure to leave a comment down below with your thoughts on this specific episode of Raw and the Summer of Punk overall. Like I said before, I promise not to do any more episodes, any more video blogs on 2011 in wrestling. I mean, like I said before, it's hard to ignore it because there's so much going on that year that I love to reminisce on. But there really isn't much more from the remainder of the year that I'm going to go back and talk about again. Just this episode of Raw I really wanted to talk about because it was a great show. So make sure to leave a comment down below with your thoughts on the show, or you can tweet me on Twitter with your thoughts at WrestleRants, or even on Facebook, just like me at Graham Jason Matthews. All the links are down in the description box below. With all that being said, thanks for watching, folks. I'll be back next week with another video blog. Graham Jason Matthews, and I'll catch you then.